She stopped in the middle of the snow on Christmas Eve. Looked down at the ring in her hand, and chose a goodbye she could never take back. The town behind her was quiet, almost unreal, as if the falling snow had swallowed every sound. No laughter drifted from the houses tonight. No music. Only the soft, steady hush of snow settling on rooftops, fences, and the empty street beneath her boots. She opened her gloved hand. The ring lay there, small and dull, its gold worn thin by years of waiting. Once, it had shone brightly. Once, she had worn it proudly, believing it was proof of a future that could not be taken away. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she made a decision she would never undo. The town of Briar Hollow always felt different in winter. Snow softened its sharp edges, covered old grudges, and hid the cracks in buildings that time had forgotten. On Christmas Eve, the town usually glowed with candlelight and cautious hope. Children pressed their faces to frosted windows. Families gathered close, pretending the cold and the past could not reach them. But tonight, she walked alone. Her name was Eleanor Hart. She had lived in Briar Hollow her entire life, long enough to remember when the streets were full and the trains still came on time. Long enough to remember when promises felt permanent. When love felt safe. She pulled her coat tighter as the wind cut through the silence. Snowflakes clung to her dark hair, melting slowly against her skin. Each step she took left a mark behind her, a fragile line of footprints already beginning to disappear. That seemed fitting. At the edge of town stood the open field, wide and white, stretching toward the frozen hills beyond. No fences. No houses. Just snow, untouched and endless. This was where she was going. This was where it would end. She had not planned this moment carefully. It had come to her suddenly, earlier that evening, while she stood in her small kitchen holding the ring she had not worn in years. Outside, church bells had begun to ring, slow and distant, calling people home. The sound had made something inside her finally give way. Eleanor stepped into the field, snow crunching beneath her boots. The cold seeped through the soles, sharp and biting, but she welcomed it. Pain was honest. Pain reminded her she was still here. She stopped near the center of the field and knelt, brushing snow aside with her bare hand. The cold burned her skin instantly, but she did not pull back. The ground beneath was frozen solid. She laughed quietly at that. Even the earth refused to open easily tonight. The ring felt heavier than it should have as she held it between her fingers. She remembered the night he had given it to her, standing under a sky just like this one, snow drifting down as if the world itself had paused to watch. He had smiled then, nervous, hopeful. "I'll be back before the snow melts," he had said. She had believed him. Everyone had. His name was Thomas Hale, and he had left town years ago with promises stitched into every goodbye. Work, he said. Opportunity. A future they would share once he returned. At first, letters came regularly. Then less often. Then not at all. People in town stopped asking about him. They lowered their voices when his name was mentioned. Eventually, they stopped mentioning him altogether. Eleanor never stopped waiting. Christmas after Christmas passed. Snow after snow. Each year, she told herself it would be the last one she waited by the window. Each year, she left a candle burning just in case. Tonight, she had not lit a candle. She pressed the ring into the snow. For a moment, it resisted, sitting there like it still belonged to her. Then, slowly, it sank beneath the white surface, disappearing inch by inch until only a faint golden edge remained. Eleanor covered it completely. She stood, brushing snow from her hands, her fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from the weight lifting inside her chest. It was not relief. Not exactly. It was acceptance. Behind her, the church bells grew louder, marking the hour. Midnight was close now. Christmas was arriving whether she was ready or not. She turned away from the field. With each step back toward town, her footprints filled in behind her, erased by the falling snow. By the time she reached the road again, there was no sign she had ever been there at all. No sign of the ring. No sign of the woman who had waited for years. As Eleanor walked home, she did not look back. She did not know, could not know, that this quiet choice, made alone on a snowy Christmas Eve, was only the beginning. That by burying the past, she had uncovered something else entirely. Something the snow had been hiding all along. And before Christmas morning came, Briar Hollow would remember her name. Eleanor woke before dawn. The house was cold, quieter than usual, as if it, too, were holding its breath. Pale winter light slipped through the thin curtains, turning the room silver. For a moment, she lay still, unsure why her chest felt tight, why her hands were already clenched. Then she remembered. The field. The snow. The ring. She sat up slowly, half expecting regret to rush in all at once. It didn't. What she felt instead was strange, an emptiness, yes, but also a fragile calm. Like the silence after a long storm. Outside, the bells rang again. Christmas morning. Eleanor dressed carefully and stepped outside. Briar Hollow looked untouched, almost innocent beneath the fresh snowfall. Children's laughter echoed faintly from somewhere down the street. Doors opened. Smoke curled from chimneys. Life was continuing, as if nothing had been buried the night before. As she walked toward the main road, she noticed something unusual. Footprints. They crossed the street ahead of her, deep and uneven, cutting sharply through the smooth snow. They had not been there last night. These were fresh. Recent. And they led toward the open field. Eleanor stopped. Her heart began to beat faster, though she told herself there was nothing to fear. People walked near the fields all the time. Hunters. Travelers. Children chasing stories. Still, something about the direction made her uneasy. She followed them. The wind picked up as she reached the edge of the field, lifting snow into the air like pale smoke. The footprints continued forward, stopping abruptly near the place where she had knelt hours before. Eleanor's breath caught. The snow there was disturbed. Someone had been here. She stepped closer, her boots sinking into the uneven ground. Her eyes scanned the white surface, searching for the place where she had buried the ring, the spot she had tried so carefully to erase from the world. The snow was broken open. And the ring was gone. For a long moment, Eleanor could not move. Her first thought was anger. Then fear. Then a sharp, aching confusion that made her chest hurt. She dropped to her knees, digging through the snow with bare hands, as if she might somehow undo what had already happened. But the earth beneath was frozen, solid and unforgiving. Someone had taken it. A voice spoke behind her. You shouldn't be out here alone. Eleanor spun around. A man stood a few steps away, his coat dusted with snow, his hat pulled low. He looked tired, worn by travel and cold. A stranger, and yet something about the shape of his face, the way he stood, made her heart stumble. She rose slowly. I was just leaving, she said, though her voice trembled. The man hesitated. His eyes moved from her face to the disturbed snow, then back again. I didn't mean to frighten you, he said quietly. I saw someone come out here earlier. Thought they might be hurt. Her breath caught. Did you see what they took? She asked before she could stop herself. The man frowned. Took. She studied him closely now. His eyes were familiar. Too familiar. The sound of his voice, softened by years, but unmistakable, struck something deep inside her. Her heart began to race. No, he continued slowly. I didn't see anyone else. Just, you. The lie was gentle. Careful. Eleanor knew it was a lie. Then why are my footprints not the only ones here? She asked. The man said nothing. Snow fell between them, thick and steady, as if the sky itself were trying to hide the truth. Eleanor took a step closer, her pulse roaring in her ears. You know something, she said. Don't you? He exhaled slowly, as though the cold had reached his lungs at last. When he lifted his head again, his eyes were full of something Eleanor had not seen in years. Guilt. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, he said. The world tilted. Her breath came in sharp gasps now. Her fingers curled into fists, nails biting into her palms. Thomas, she whispered. The sound of his name seemed to shatter the morning. He removed his hat, snow clinging to his dark hair. Time had changed him. Lines etched his face. His shoulders were heavier, his posture cautious. But it was him. There was no doubt. I came back last night, he said. I didn't know how to find you. I thought you might have moved on. Her laugh broke free, sharp and humorless. Moved on, she echoed. I buried my ring in the snow. Thomas swallowed. I saw. Silence fell between them, thick and unbearable. I followed your footprints, he admitted. I didn't know what you were going to do. When you left. I dug it out. I didn't want it lost forever. He reached into his coat slowly, carefully, as though approaching a wild animal. The ring rested in his palm. Snow melted against the gold. Eleanor stared at it, her vision blurring. You left, she said, her voice barely steady. You disappeared. You let me wait for years. I know, he said softly. And I will carry that shame until the day I die. The bells rang again, louder now. Christmas morning had fully arrived. People would be waking. The town would soon notice them standing here together, frozen in the open field, past and present colliding beneath falling snow. Eleanor closed her eyes. She had buried the ring to end something. Instead, the snow had returned it, and with it, the man she had spent years learning how to forget. She did not yet know whether this was mercy, or another test. Eleanor did not reach for the ring. The snow fell steadily around them, soft but relentless, as if the world were reminding her that time did not stop for unfinished conversations. Thomas still held the ring in his open palm, waiting. Hoping. I didn't come back to ask for forgiveness, he said quietly. I came back because I couldn't live with what I left behind. Eleanor opened her eyes. For years, she had imagined this moment, the words she would say, the anger she would unleash, the strength she would finally show. But standing here now, with the cold biting her skin and his familiar face before her, none of those rehearsed emotions arrived. What came instead was exhaustion. You left without a goodbye, she said. Do you know what that does to someone? Thomas nodded slowly. Every day. She looked past him, toward the hills wrapped in snow. I defended you, she continued. When people whispered. When they stopped asking. I told myself there must have been a reason. There was, he said. But it was a coward's reason. The wind carried his words away almost immediately, but Eleanor had heard them clearly enough. She had waited years for explanations. Now that one finally stood before her, it felt strangely small. Why didn't you write? She asked. I did, he said. At first. But every letter felt like a lie. I wasn't becoming the man I promised you. I was losing myself. And I thought if I stayed gone long enough, you'd stop waiting. Her throat tightened. And if I didn't? She asked. His voice broke. Then I would deserve the silence. The bells rang again in the distance. Louder now. People were waking. Soon, someone would come looking. Briar Hollow was not a town that ignored familiar faces, especially ones long believed lost. Eleanor finally looked at the ring. It was smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she had grown. You should keep it, Thomas said softly. It's yours. She shook her head. That ring belonged to a woman who was always waiting, she said. I'm not her anymore. He closed his fingers around it slowly. I don't expect anything from you, he said. I won't even stay, if you don't want me to. I just needed you to know that I came back. That I saw what you did, and what it meant. Eleanor felt the weight of the past settle between them, heavy, but no longer sharp. She had buried the ring because she thought it would free her. She hadn't expected the snow to return it as a question. Come with me, she said suddenly. Thomas looked up, startled. Where? To the edge of town, she replied. Before people start asking questions. They walked side by side, not touching, their steps careful. The town slowly came back into view, smoke rising, doors opening, voices carrying across the cold air. A few people paused, staring, recognizing Thomas even through the years. Whispers began. Eleanor stopped near the old railway sign where the road split. This is where I turn, she said. Thomas nodded. I understand. She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper, worn thin. I kept one of your letters, she said. The last one. His breath caught. I read it when I buried the ring, she continued. Not because I missed you. Because I needed to remember who I was back then. She held the paper out to him. This belongs to the past, she said. You can take it with you, or leave it here. That choice is yours. Thomas took the letter with trembling hands. I'm sorry, he said again. Not loudly. Not desperately. Just honestly. Eleanor nodded. I know. For the first time, she believed it. She turned away. After a few steps, she stopped and spoke without looking back. Whatever you do next, she said, don't disappear again. Someone else might still be waiting. She walked toward the town as snow continued to fall, light and endless. Her footsteps marked the path briefly, then faded, just as they had the night before. Behind her, Thomas stood alone, the ring heavy in his pocket, the letter pressed against his heart. He watched her until she disappeared among the houses. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction. The snow covered both paths equally. And for the first time in many years, Eleanor felt no urge to look back. The snow had not stopped falling. It clung to rooftops, swirled around the empty streets, and drifted over the field where Eleanor and Thomas had stood in silence hours ago. Christmas morning had arrived in Briar Hollow, yet the world felt paused, as though holding its breath for them. Eleanor walked slowly toward the edge of the field again. Her coat was dusted with frost, and her boots crunched softly on the packed snow. She still could not bring herself to look at Thomas, though she could feel his presence behind her, quiet, patient, and yet insistent. Eleanor, his voice was careful, hesitant, as though he feared the weight of her answer. Please. Just hear me. She stopped. Her fingers clenched at the edges of her coat. The wind whipped across the open field, sharp and cold, but she welcomed the sting. Pain was honest. It reminded her she was alive. It reminded her of everything she had survived. She turned slowly, finally meeting his eyes. He looked older, weathered by years of travel and mistakes, but that warmth she had once known, that reckless, tender kindness, was still there. And with it, a truth she could not ignore, he had returned. Not for convenience. Not for comfort. But because he could not live without making amends. I know I have no right, Thomas said. His hands stayed at his sides, but his gaze never left hers. I have no right to ask for forgiveness. He swallowed. I only want you to know that I tried to come back sooner. I tried to reach you. But everything went wrong. And I lost you. Eleanor's chest ached, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and anger. Years of waiting, of longing, of imagining a life together, had been stolen. And yet here he was. The snow fell on them like a blessing and a curse, blurring the edges of the world, giving them a private eternity in which only the past and present mattered. "You left," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You promised. You promised you'd return. Every Christmas, I waited by the window, by the snow, and you weren't there. And now you expect what? That I will forget the years you stole from me?" Thomas took a hesitant step forward, the snow swallowing his movement, softening the sound. "No," he said. "I don't expect that. I only hope. I hope you can see that I never stopped loving you. That the snow, the years, the silence, none of it could take you from my heart." Eleanor looked down at the snow-dusted field. Her hands clenched. Every step she had taken, every lonely night, every candle left burning had led to this moment. And now, she realized, the choice was hers alone. To forgive. To let go. Or to turn and walk away, finally, once and for all. She knelt again, brushing the frost from the soft earth. The spot where she had buried the ring hours before was still visible, the snow disturbed. Carefully, she dug it out, her fingers freezing against the cold metal. The gold gleamed faintly in the muted light, reflecting the snow around it. It was a relic, a memory, and a decision all in one. She held it tightly, staring at Thomas. "I buried it for a reason," she said quietly. "I thought I could move on. I thought I could forget. But I can't, not yet. Not without knowing you meant it. Truly." Thomas's eyes softened. "I meant every word, every promise, every hope. I left, not because I didn't care, but because I thought it was the only way to protect you. Everything I did to keep you safe. Even when it meant leaving." Eleanor's lips trembled. She closed her eyes. She remembered the cold nights alone, the snow outside her window, the silence that had become her companion. And now, standing here with him, she felt the weight of those years lifting, though not completely gone. Forgiveness would not erase the past. But perhaps it could make the present bearable. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The snow swirled around them, small flakes clinging to their coats and hair. She extended the ring toward him. "I don't know if I can forgive everything yet," she said. "But I can start again. Here. Now. If you're willing to try too." Thomas's hand closed around hers. He held the ring between them, a fragile bridge between past and present. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, carried only by the wind. "I will spend every day making it right. Every day. I promise you." The snow around them thickened, silent and pure. For the first time in years, Eleanor allowed herself a small, quiet smile. She felt the warmth return to her chest. She felt hope. Not blind hope. Not reckless hope. But a cautious, steady kind of hope that came from the understanding that love, even broken, could still endure. They walked slowly back toward town, footprints side by side now. Each step felt like a release, a shedding of old pain. The bells rang in the distance, clearer now, announcing the arrival of Christmas morning. Children laughed. Smoke rose from chimneys. Life went on. And so could they, together, if only they chose to. As they approached the first houses, Eleanor glanced at Thomas. "You know," she said lightly, though her voice still trembled, "you have a lot to make up for." "I know," he replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "And I will. Starting now." They reached the edge of town, where the snow had begun to gather in small drifts, soft and untarnished. Eleanor stopped and looked back at the open field, the place where everything had ended and yet begun again. The snow glimmered in the pale light, untouched by the bitterness of the past. It had been silent witness to love, loss, and finally, reconciliation. The open field stretched before them, blanketed in soft, untarnished snow, reflecting the pale winter light like a canvas untouched by the passage of time. Each flake that fell seemed to pause midair for a heartbeat, as though the world itself were holding its breath for this moment. Eleanor lingered at the edge of the field, her gaze fixed on the endless white, tracing the faint impressions of footprints that had once marked her solitude, her waiting, her quiet desperation. And now, they were no longer hers alone. They were shared, intertwined with the presence of the man who had returned, the man she had loved and learned to fear losing to time and circumstance. She turned slowly to Thomas. His figure was strong yet cautious beside her, the coat dusted with snow, hat in hand. His eyes held that same warmth she had once memorized, tempered by the years and tempered by guilt, but unmistakably familiar. There was no rush, no expectation, only the patient steadiness of someone who had traveled long distances, through snow, through mistakes, through silence, to stand here again. Eleanor's breath came in quiet puffs, each one mingling with the falling snow, carrying away the weight she had held for so many years. For the first time, she felt the possibility of something other than longing. Something softer. Something stronger. The town of Briar Hollow lay ahead, waking slowly to Christmas morning. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys, children's laughter drifted faintly through the air, and the distant chiming of church bells echoed across rooftops. Yet in this moment, all that seemed distant, softened, secondary. What mattered was here, now, in the quiet expanse between snow-laden field and waking town. The open white stretched before them like a promise, a testament to the passage of time, and to the endurance of hearts willing to forgive, to try again. Eleanor and Thomas stepped forward together, their boots crunching softly in the snow. Each step felt deliberate, a shedding of old pain, a leaving behind of years spent in uncertainty and absence. The footprints they made intertwined, a visual echo of the bond being rebuilt in silence, stronger than words. She did not hesitate. She did not glance back at the field, though its memory lingered like a ghost, soft and forgiving. The snow continued to fall, thick and gentle, settling on their coats and hair, as if the world were blessing their reunion. Eleanor felt warmth spread through her chest, not from the fleeting sun or the smoke curling from nearby chimneys, but from the simple, profound knowledge that they were choosing to walk forward together. With each step, the shadows of the past receded, replaced by something quieter, steadier, a sense of hope tempered by experience, courage, and the understanding that forgiveness is not a single act, but a journey. And for the first time in many years, Eleanor felt as if she were truly free. Free to move forward without the weight of waiting. Free to let love return cautiously, carefully, and fully. Free to carry the lessons of heartbreak and loss, not as chains, but as the foundation for something stronger. The snow around them whispered and swirled, the world muted and alive, witnessing the quiet miracle of hearts reuniting, of choices made, and of love that endured, patiently, through every winter, every storm, every lost moment. And in that suspended, luminous morning, Eleanor and Thomas walked onward together, step by step, into the promise of a new beginning.